Hi, this is Grover, Blue Collar Codes, Leetcode series, problem 492, construct the rectangle. We'll jump over to the problem statement. Basically, my favorite word, you are given an area and you have to find the factor that's closest to, say, the perfect square if there were one for this. So for 4 there is one. If there isn't, then you have to find a multiple that has the least distance between them, and L has to be greater. So let's jump into my problem by going over to VS Code. All right. So my problem, I am importing default dict from collections. I am creating a default dict S, and then for every length in the range of 1 to the area plus 1, so it'll cap at the area. If the area is divisible by the L, which is just, a range of lengths, I'm going through them all arbitrarily. If it divides that and it doesn't have a remainder, then I am creating a length and width pair, and so long as the L value is greater than the width, I'm adding it to the default dict, with the difference being the key, meaning the difference between the length and the width, because I'm trying to find the smallest one, of course, and then the length and width pair. So it'll loop through all those values, and then I'm just taking the minimum of the keys, placing it as the key in that default dict, and returning that. Now, obviously, not the best from an efficiency perspective. So let's dive on down to the problem that does have a better amount of efficiency. So this problem is quite clever in that they are taking the square root, which finds a quote-unquote center line, so what two values can be multiplied together to equal your value. So they're making that their starting range value, and then they are going to be subtracting by an integer 1, and also of note is they're creating an integer from that, meaning it'll automatically round down. And then they are subtracting until they find a factor, an actual factor that doesn't return a float, and thereby that will be the centermost, length times width pair. So they're basically just, a clever way of finding the closest or the best value, splitting it down the middle already, but it would be a float, turning it into an integer and then incrementing by 1, so maintaining integers until it actually finds a factor, and then returning that in the length by width pair. So that's pretty clever in that, it cuts out all of the beginning ranges here. It cuts out half the problem, because this is the literal fastest way to get there unless you're doing a straight mathematical equation. If one exists, I am not a math whiz, so there might be a way just to simply do a calculation without any kind of a loop. But in this case, pretty clever response. So again, Grover, Blue Collar Codes. This was a Leetcode series episode, problem 492, construct the rectangle. Thanks for joining.